Hello. I'd like to cold open the show this week by quoting one of my favorite spoken word artists of all time, a gentleman known as Jim Mora. And that goes like this: Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. Are you kidding me? Playoffs? Yes, indeed. We're finally going to talk about playoffs right here on the Rouge, White, and Blue CFL podcast. Coming up next. Hello and welcome to the Rouge, White, and Blue CFL podcast. My name's Oz Davis, and the co-host of the show. I swear I've got it all together. A man who certainly has it all together is my co-host, Joe Pritchard. Joe, how is it going for you this evening?
I have to say I'm blown away.
Blown away by what?
hmm Well, the weather gods for one.
So how's that? Okay, so what do you mean, in Wisconsin or in
No, I
Winnipeg or
mean
BC or
yesterday's ending to Winnipeg, Montreal.
okay, okay,
I mean, we'll get into that more later, but
okay.
that was that was just one of those few times I've just sat there gobsmacked by the ending of a game. Like I've seen a lot of things. I don't think I've seen that one before.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get into that. In general, I felt like the final week of the NFL season was a lot of fun, like we talked about before the show. Barn burners. Let's put it that way. Every team of the 8 teams that were playing, 7 scored at least 27 points. The only team that didn't, of course, were the Riders, who, were probably pretty bummed out by the fact that they had just been eliminated a few hours before. So, this was the only team not to score at least 27 points. We had some remarkable feats, some remarkable accomplishments, and of course, you had that Bombers Owls game. The Owls gave the Bombers a much better game than I thought they might. Um, but let's go into it then. I just wanted to touch on a few things really quick. Started off with, wow, I mean, a game I was ready to hand to the Cats as I was watching this thing about a million times. Um, I watched it the next morning after it showed live. And I guess history will show that this game was about Bo Levi Mitchell. Incredibly enough, setting the single season mark for the Hamilton Tiger Cats franchise, which is pretty bizarre if you think about it, because wasn't this dude benched earlier this season, Joe?
Yes, and that lasted all of like what, one quarter or something? Well,
Yeah,
one
but
basically one full game once you consider he got pulled early in a game, early
yeah,
in the next game,
four
Taylor
quarters.
Powell goes
Four
down. Yeah,
quarters.
probably about a game.
Right. Yeah, but that was circumstance, right? That was
Right.
circumstance. So pretty wild there. Um, kind of got the award by process of elimination. I mean, Bo was basically the only quarterback other than Jake Meyer who was available all 18 games this season, which, of course, in the CFL goes a tremendous way. Usually we're expecting to see some second stringers, at least a little bit, due to injury. So in that respect, he kind of won it by default. Now, on the other hand, Ottawa played plucky ball as always. I say it every week. It seems like they play smart ball. There's that cliche in football. This team doesn't know the meaning of the word quit. And the Red Blacks certainly fit this role. But I also feel like they don't know the meaning of the word self doubt. They don't know the meaning of the word frustration. I've never seen a team. I mean, like, okay, last week, right, in week 20 against Toronto, same deal. I mean, that game was over. I mean, they had no reason to make that final score so close. And yet in the second quarter, they're doing things like, winning the onside kick and turning it into points. It's like, and so now the Red Blacks have what seems to be a pretty good win going into the playoffs. Will it make a difference, Joe?
It just might. I They get Toronto next week in Toronto.
Mhm.
Never an easy out there. But they've over the past 5 quarters have just shown that, and longer than that too, but especially in the past 5 quarters, it just show that they'll just keep coming. They're not going to ever be in a situation where they're down a certain amount of points and they just turn everything off and get ready to go home.
Right.
It's not in the way they've played, and that all credit to the coaching staff. I
Mhm.
feel like their talent level is still a little bit lower than Montreal and Toronto have, but not quitting and not and just keeping the foot on the gas is a quality all of its own.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep. 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 Well, and playing smart. Again, this is one of this team on defense. I was looking at the defensive stats for reasons that will come up later during the preview portion of the show. I was looking up the stats, and team wise, I don't think Ottawa is in the top half of any defensive categories, including generating turnovers. Same goes with the offense, except creating turnovers, right? This is a team. They might not generate many turnovers. They might not get many sacks. They might not put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they don't make dumb mistakes. I say it all the time. I'm saying it again because this game was proof of this. They stayed cool. They beat probably a worse team like they should. I mean, ultimately, they ended up what, half a game ahead of Hamilton?
Yeah, it was enough.
Hamilton doesn't right. Hamilton doesn't make the playoffs, and they were about half a game off of, Ottawa, 1 point in the Canadian
Well,
system.
I want to say it's more than that because I don't think Hamilton got up to even 8 wins, did they? No, they're 7-11 now.
Seven and
Now if Friday night would have went a different way, it would have been yes by a half a point, but
yeah.
Ottawa finishing it off made it a game and a half.
Yeah, see, I keep because again, I'm still in that mentality where I'm giving Hamilton the game. They had this game locked. I mean, Bo Levy was I mean, again, like I previewed this game last week, saying everybody's going to be loose. I think Bo wants to show down. I was not aware that he was that close to the single season record. In this game, he went for 425, though. He was throwing at will, basically. There were a lot of gaudy statistical performances by quarterbacks this weekend. Uh, Speaking of which, Toronto Edmonton was the second game. How'd you like this one? Did you
I
enjoy this game?
I loved the ending because I like how
Okay.
Canadian rules sometimes make things that you would never see in a US game be game winning plays.
Oh man. Oh man. Yeah, I
And of
was gonna
course, then
say
the whole next morning on all the social feeds was this is terrible. We shouldn't. And I'm just sitting there going, We're talking about it, right? Isn't that the whole? Isn't that half
Right,
the point of doing anything these days?
right. I mean, it's like okay, so I was thinking after this one, it's like okay, Toronto lost, all right, so that's always good as far as I'm concerned, at least in 2024. Okay, you gotta love that. But I mean, come on, the punter Jake Julian winning in overtime on a Rouge. I mean, how can you not love? Who could be a curmudgeon and complain about that?
Oh,
And walked off
most
the
everybody.
season. Walked off the season. Yeah, come on now. Come on. How awesome is that? Punters so don't get their due. What I'd like to see what the numbers are on this in the Canadian Hall of Fame. But isn't it true that there's only one punter in the American Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I think so.
Ray Guy. Ray
Hmm.
Guy, right?
Yeah,
He's the
he was
only
head and
one.
shoulders above the position at this point. At the
Oh
point
well,
he
yeah.
played, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean he was awesome. Ray Guy was he was dominant, right? But I mean, I'll tell you, I was following the Rams when they were playing in St. Louis. Okay, I know what it's like when the best player on your team is your punter. Okay, it's possible, you know. So I just thought it was nice in that respect, you know. I mean, the punter got to walk off the season. How awesome is that in overtime? That's just that's just great. I mean, again, that's what I like about the Rouge. There are guys on special teams that get rewarded because of the Rouge, you know. So, in any case, okay. So, all right. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say was is that okay, Trey Ford. Trey Ford is playing, and I mean, not a mind blowing game. I mean, his stats look pretty good. Under the circumstances, 16 of 25, 325 yards, 3 touchdowns versus no interceptions. But just looking at the one pass that he floated to Javon Leake in the first quarter, and Leake turned it into a 67-yard touchdown, was I mean, this is why you love Trey Ford, right? I mean, he just placed it right on him, right on him. I mean, it was like he was cradling a baby when he got this thing. It was so nicely placed. It was great. It was one of the best passes of the year I've seen in the CFL. Really nice job. So I just wanted to say I was impressed with that. Okay, so Joe, I mean, you're kind of an optimistic guy, but try and look at it objectively. Are Edmonton Elks fans positive going into next season? All things being equal.
I think they're going to have to make a couple of big moves in the off season to
Okay.
show people that they're going to maintain this second half level of play they've had.
Hmm.
Because of course, the first 7 games, all losses.
Hmm.
They finished what 7-11? That or yeah, 7-11. So do the
Yeah,
math.
they.
7-4 throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But they've got
They're.
they have to win. They have to win the fan base back. They've lost it over the past five, oh, 5, 7, 8 years. Really, ever since they won the Grey Cup in Winnipeg in 2015, they've been on a downward trajectory.
Yeah,
They've bounced back up a little bit now, but they've still got a long ways to go to winning that fan base back. I think you have to make a choice on Trey Ford this offseason. Is he the guy or is he not? And if he's not, he needs to not be in town. That's going to hurt you with the fan base for sure if he's out of town. But make that decision. Don't do this 3 years in a row where somebody else is the starter and Trey Ford earns playing time as the season goes and shows that he can start for you. Like either go get Vernon Adams and just call it a day, or go with Trey Ford and that's it. Be done with it. Don't
and McLeod
be,
Bethel Thompson does not
don't
enter the conversation.
don't ping pong. Right. Because
Okay.
McCall Bethel Thompson did fine for what his role was. He did what
Yeah.
was asked of him.
Well, the second time around. The second time
Yeah,
around.
I mean,
Yeah.
even the first time around, they were
Mm.
losing by 3 points. Like how many weeks in a row?
Well, yeah, 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 yeah. They were the dumb They were the dumb losers for a while. Yep,
Yeah.
they were losing games stupid.
And he
Yep.
had a bit of a role to play in that once in a while too, but at the same time, it wasn't just him going 0-7, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. Wins are not a quarterback stat, so
Right.
therefore losses are not a quarterback stat either. Right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Right.
But
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 don't
on the
do
other
that.
hand,
Don't go and get the veteran plug in.
mhm,
I don't think they will this time around, but
no.
that would just drive the fan base absolutely nuts and do you no good. Either you plug in Trey Ford and say he's the guy next year, or you make it very, very clear that he wasn't the guy that you expected, that you wanted, that you needed him to be, and you go get a flashy free agent.
Wow. Vernon
Those are your
Adams.
two choices.
Vernon Adams in Edmonton. Wow. Wow.
Like
That would be
you either put the franchise in Trey Ford's hands, or you put Trey Ford out of town. Those are your
mhm.
two choices. Because if you try to go midway like you have been the last couple of years, it's just gonna fall apart all over again.
Right. So you don't see him backing up Vernon Adams.
No, it's one or the other. I'm not even saying go out and replace him. I'm saying if you don't believe he's the guy you can hand the franchise to, basically it's either VA or Bo. Those are the two guys that could possibly pass muster with the fan base. And even then,
Hmm.
you're starting with you're starting off shooting yourself in the foot with the fan base, regardless, because they want Trey to be the guy.
Okay, now Bo Levy Mitchell in Edmonton. I can see that.
Hmm.
I can see that. I could imagine that like, in the Mike Riley seat. Um, well, hopefully ownership will have a good off season, huh? The front office
I
will
mean,
have a
that's your
good
first
off season,
decision, right?
right?
As okay, and do we have the front office we want? Do we want G Roy to be
Right.
the guy? Do we want Jerry Distraction to be the guy? And honestly, I would say yes, but yes to both. Don't
Mhm.
rock the boat more than you have to, because you've seen once things are a little bit more stable in town, you have some talent around that team. I don't think you mess with success right now.
Mhm.
Success being relative, but still, you're taking a step from where you were, unless you have something that's going to, that you know is better. I say you leave it alone, at least for another season.
Mhm. 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 Okay. Right. Let's go on. Winnipeg Blue Bombers, 28. Montreal, oh, it's 27. Okay. What do you want to say, Joe? What do you want to say?
I
I
want to
say we
say,
shouldn't have given your guy a minute on the clock.
yeah,
We should
probably.
have. Okay. So
Yeah. The
what
Bombers
would
had
you what
so many chances early in the game to put up 7 and put up 3. Montreal had a strong second quarter and a strong beginning of the third quarter,
Mhm.
and it looked like it was over at that point. The Bombers are resilient. They've been there before. They made the struggle. They struggled to climb up the ladder to chase the points they had left behind. It's not. It's as I've been saying all season. That's not the role they're best at playing at. But they almost got there, and then somehow, when it looked like the game was over, it wasn't. We'll take a gift from the gods and go, and we'll see you at the West Final.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah, we'll get the week off.
Hmm?
We'll get next week off too. Uh okay. All right. All right. Well put. Well put. Look, Joe, the truth is we kept you out of the end zone in the first half too,
Uh huh.
right?
Exactly.
There wasn't any we didn't get any picks, but we had a couple of key sacks on the defense, right? So, I'm just saying, if we meet you guys in the Grey Cup again, you know,
You
I'm
should be
fully
favored by
expecting
6 if you meet us in the Grey Cup.
by 6.
I would say so,
Wow. Wow.
because even
I
when
think
you called off the Dogs in the third quarter,
uh,
you still had control of the game until the very, very end.
yep. 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 Well, yeah, when Sergio missed, when they set up Sergio for the 61 yarder, do you do that? I mean, is that your call in this
And I
situation?
think Marshall Ferguson made a great poll too,
Okay.
because O'Shea made the same decision in the 2016 West Semi to send Justin
Mm,
Medlock out for a long kick, and
mm,
Ferguson pulled it out and said this reminded him of that. I'm like, you're thinking right along
yeah,
with me.
that's a
It
good
felt
call.
in the weather conditions, which
Mhm.
I mean at that point hadn't turned into gale force winds out of nowhere.
Yeah, yeah,
But even so, it's a cooler day in Montreal. It's not June, it's not July where the ball's going to fly a little further.
yeah.
And even when he made a 60 yard earlier this year, but he missed
Yep.
one too. I mean, that's not really a high percentage play to begin with, and then you bring the weather into it and the pressure.
Mhm.
No, I disagree wholeheartedly with that one before that try even happened.
Okay. Okay. What do you punt and try and go for the Rouge?
No, no, you're down two at that point, so that doesn't
Yeah.
help either.
Yeah.
But I think it was like fourth and or third and 5, right? It wasn't even that
Yeah, it was
big.
reasonable. Yep.
Yeah, it was reasonable. So it wasn't like
Yep.
third and 25 where you have to chuck a hope and a prayer up and you might as well try it with your kicker instead.
Mhm, mhm,
No.
mhm.
But all of a sudden the winds came up, the punt goes sideways, and Sergio gets another chance from 51, which I was still pretty nervous about because
Mhm.
he'd been shortened to the right on the first one. Well, second one he hit well. Really nothing more to say. That was a gift, and there's no denying it.
Okay. Well, yeah, but that last one he earned, right? that
Yeah, he
that
made the
last,
kick,
yeah, 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 right,
but he shouldn't have had the chance to make that kick, right?
right, right. Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, But what else? Okay, all right. So sitting there, I'm watching that fourth quarter, right? And the Owls have the ball with a little bit over a minute, right? And so what do? They do shotgun run to Erlington twice. I'm not sure. I mean, even if you're trying to burn clock, get Winnipeg to burn the timeouts, whatever. Even if that's your goal, okay. Um, can't you? Is there not a slightly better play? I mean, is there not a way you can get a few yards even?
Well,
Yeah.
that's what you call when the
Major.
game result doesn't actually impact you.
Oh,
You go
okay.
to your
Okay. All right.
backups.
Fair
You
enough.
go to your
Fair enough.
if winning would have sent Montreal to the East Final instead of the other way around.
Yep.
I mean, if both teams had something to play for, maybe they go play action on second down or something and take a shot at a first down and ending the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Yeah.
At this point, it's let's get us out of here as fast as we can.
Yep. Yep.
Take our week off, and we'll see whoever in the East Final.
I think you're right.
Which is
I
really
think you're
kind of the way they played the fourth quarter to begin with, too.
Yeah. 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 Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, Erlington has been this season's human victory cigar anyway. So,
Hmm.
whenever you see him in the game, you know that the Owls are, it's preseason again. It's time to play the second string again.
And
So,
he didn't play poorly either. He was
oh
in
no, of course not. No, he had a good
a
game.
lot of the second half, and he played pretty well too.
Yeah, yeah. No, he had a good game. I mean, I thought most of the Alouettes had a good game. I mean, neither of our quarterbacks were spectacular, but neither of them were
You were
bad.
also not showing any
No,
of your
of course. Yep.
either
Yep.
because who knows who
Of
you're
course.
seeing in 3 weeks.
Yep. 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 Sure.
And for
Um.
playing a slightly vanilla game with a lot of your roster in and out, I mean, it's easy to see why Montreal's the best team in the league right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's hope. Let's hope. I mean, I'm starting to wonder if this isn't all about who's the hottest team, like I usually do come playoff time in any major North American sport these days. Um.
Now, Montreal played well enough to win, even with what they were doing. They caught a terrible break at the end of the game, and I don't think it really, really impacted them one way or the other. So if I'm a Montreal fan today, and you are, I'm not, but if I'm a Montreal fan today, I'm going okay, fine. See you in 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, already I'm sweating out Toronto a little bit, but
Right,
yeah,
but
it, the
you knew you weren't playing all your starters the whole game.
yeah,
You'd basically, in your back of your mind, you have to concede that Winnipeg's got something to play for. You don't.
mhm,
They're more likely to win than my team is, but if my team wins, great. And it just turned out that one fluky play ended up meaning your team didn't, but you still put up an effort that makes you go, okay, they're ready, they're fine.
yeah. Well, that was the thing. I mean, again, like I'm happy that we didn't do what happened last year to the Argos. The Argos spent 5, 6 games just like churning roster,
Right.
just
And
because
Winnipeg took advantage of Toronto last year doing that too.
because they had to.
Right. Not quite to the
So
same extent, but
right,
Toronto was winning
exactly.
that game in the fourth quarter in Winnipeg and then switched to the third string quarterback and the offense slowed down.
Mhm.
And that's when Winnipeg caught up finally.
Yeah, I mean, I was just happy. I mean, the thing was is Montreal didn't have anything to play for. We played our first string in the first half, but you know what? It ended up looking like any other Alouettes win or close loss this season. You know,
Right.
our quarterbacks do a moderately decent job. Our defense is awesome, which they were in this game. Again, despite the lack of interceptions, but we were good in the other areas. You know, it looked like a normal game for the Alouettes. So, and we took the defending West champs to a point. So, you
Yeah.
yeah, I was pretty happy, and it looked like a solid effort from our guys the whole game too. So I like that. I like that. Even if it wasn't our grade A guys, it was still grade A effort. So
So
good
in
for
all, it was a win-win for both of us.
right. Good for our teams. And also good to know that the Riders lost. I
Well,
don't care if it was the second stringer. Nobody's disappointed at this. Yes.
yeah, the Riders lost the moment Sergio's field goal went through. That's when
Right.
they benched
Exactly.
4 players, and you
Exactly.
could just tell they were not. And I was flipping back and forth. I did not watch that whole game. I'll be honest, but no, it was clear that they were at that point going into preseason mode, just like okay, whatever, we got to get through this game.
Yep. 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 Everybody gets to play. It's the varsity game. it's the, it's the end of year. It's the senior game. That's it. The senior game. Yep. Okay. So, all right. We'll go to the break in just a moment. We'll go to next week's games in just a moment. But I wanted to ask you this first. All right. How do you think that this season so far will go down in history? And is it all dependent on the playoffs?
It's dependent on who wins the Grey Cup.
Okay, it is.
If it
All
goes,
right.
if let's start in the West. If Winnipeg wins, it'll be okay. They finally finish off their dynasty, and people will start throwing that word around again. If Saskatchewan wins, it'll be the greatest season in history since 2013 in Saskatchewan, anyway. Which fair. You don't have a lot of those to hang your hats on, so great. In
If the
BC,
if
it'll be another home Grey Cup, even if they came to it in a roundabout way. They seem to do well in those when they get there, so they'll start looking forward to the next time their team hosts the Grey Cup, and next time their city hosts the Grey Cup, and hope their team makes it again. If Montreal makes it, then you start throwing the D word around with Montreal. Toronto wins it, same thing. If Ottawa wins it, I don't really know. I'm not used to
well,
that idea.
if Ottawa wins, you got a lot of guys making bets similar to Tyrell Ocher. Uh, I don't, I don't know if that's going to happen this year. I've got to think there's not many lines open for this as we're recording this on Sunday night, so there's not many lines out there on the CFL matches yet. But you'd have to think that of the six teams, Ottawa by far has the longest odds.
I would think so, just having to go through Toronto and Montreal and then go
Yeah,
way out west to win a game.
yeah, yeah. And all right, so we're going to talk about that in just a moment. I'm just going to get in the traditional plug this year on the show, and that is for royalretros.com. Royalretros.com is a supplier of top quality paraphernalia and gear from all those beloved defunct teams and defunct leagues of past North American sports leagues, Canadian and American. Um, we're talking about gear from leagues like the WHA, the ABA, who else? The Negro leagues in baseball, the USFL, the XFL, I believe 1.0 XFL, arena league stuff. Lots of great gear at reasonable prices. Reasonable prices made even more reasonable because you can get 10% off by entering the promo code RWBCFL at checkout and 10% off for listeners of this show. So it's royalretros.com, RWBCFL for 10% off at checkout. Check it out today. It's really great stuff. What better way to celebrate the CFL playoffs than to wear, I don't know, Montreal Concords jersey, let's say. All right. Let's get it.
Go get it emblazoned with Turner Gill.
Nice. Okay, so let's talk about this. All right, so we're going into the playoffs, and I got to tell you, I'm just looking at before we take the deep dive here, just looking at these things. What really sticks out at you when you look at these two matchups? When you look at these four teams, because
I
there's
feel
something
like
that just like,
Toronto's the one team I don't feel like quite deserves to be in the semifinal with the way they played in the second half.
mm,
If they played
mm.
the way they played in the second half the whole season, they might be challenging Montreal for first. But of course, we know the reason why they didn't play that way in the first half. So we don't need to really get that deeply involved there.
Yeah, but they might go. They might also go 16-2 and lose in the playoffs. So
Possibility too. But
right. So,
I feel like they're the one team this next upcoming weekend that stands head and shoulders above the rest.
mhm. This weekend? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They do.
Mhm.
They do. Yep. 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 Oh yeah. You have to think about the outcome of this Riders Lions game. I mean, let's say you're a gambler, and I don't, like I just said, I don't have the lines, I don't have the point spreads for these games yet. But let's say you're a gambler. I'm not going to think about Toronto minus 6.5, against Ottawa. I'm not even going to think about that. I'll take Toronto minus the points. But this Riders game, you have to think about that. You have to think. I don't know who's going to win that game. I don't know.
No,
I don't
because
know.
BC is going to be a completely different team than they've been the last half of the season.
I guess.
They went back to Vernon Adams, and the way their offense is structured, it plays well to his abilities.
Well, different isn't always better, you know.
No,
And Vernon hasn't been awesome every time he's played this year. Not even
no,
close.
there's games where he's the best quarterback on the planet, and
Yep.
there's games where he's
Yep.
not.
Yep. Good
I,
Vernon, bad Vernon.
it's what people said about Henry Burris for years and years and years and years and years.
Mm,
But
mm,
they're the team out of the three others that we're talking about between, Winnipeg, Montreal, Toronto, you would expect to be on the top tier. BC, Saskatchewan, Ottawa are still competitors, but you're probably thinking about them as a slightly lower than that. But out of that middle tier, they're the team that I could see turning it on, just being really hot and
Mm,
burning through the playoffs.
mm, okay. Um, well, I just wanted to point out really quickly that we've been doing this show for a long time, but check this out. Okay,
Hmm.
look at the regular season records of these teams. This was wild. So the Argos are 10-8, right? And the Riders and the Red Blacks, because they tied each other. So this was
Nine,
pretty
eight, and
nice.
one.
They're both 9-8-1, and the Lions are 9-9.
Hmm.
Not only is that four teams within one game of each other, which I don't think anyone would have predicted at the beginning of the year, but hey, this is the CFL. That team is supposed to be 7-11. What's going on here? I mean, like, all right, this is the way the first round of the CFL playoffs should look,
Hmm.
right? I think so, anyway.
This is. I
I mean,
remember there were seasons where I would predict the top team in the league to be 12-6 and the bottom team to be 6-12. We
right.
darn near got that.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Like
The
several
only
times.
reason we didn't is because Calgary and Montreal tied, and if Calgary wins that game, that's exactly what we get.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, we've gone into several of these seasons going, yeah, I think things are going to tend to the middle. Doesn't really happen. Things tend to the extremes. But this year, I mean, this year, the CFL had 6 teams with winning records. That's that's what you want.
Yeah,
That's what, well, 6 teams at
usually
500 or better.
your sixth playoff team, whoever the crossover is, or if there's no
Yeah.
crossover, whoever's third,
Huh.
usually sitting at like 7-11 or 8-10.
That's what I'm saying.
Not this
Yeah,
year.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You have a team, you have that 6 team that's in there. They're about 7-11. Probably half the team hates the coach, and they get blown out in the first game 40-6. It's like, this is the traditional pattern. But this year, I mean, again, like, you can honestly say that the CFL has 6 quality teams
Hmm.
this year. And here they are. Okay, so here are 4 of them. All right, let's talk about this one. Okay, so we start off with Red Blacks at Toronto. Let's see. So they split the series this year in weeks 12 and 17. But, and I always look at this going into playoffs, especially for football playoffs, Toronto is on a 4-2 run going into the playoffs, right? I think we really have to consider who the hot teams are. I mean, look at what's happened in recent history with teams like the Alouettes last year or the original Bombers team of the 2019, right,
Hmm.
Joe? Yeah, 2019. Think about those teams getting hot near the playoff times. Now, Toronto isn't super hot; they're 4-2, but their 2 losses were 2 points to the Ticats, who somehow had their number this year, and by one on that overtime Rouge last week. So this is Toronto. They're a couple of bounces, the proverbial couple of bounces away from being 6-0 in their last 6. Um, don't like that very much. Don't like that. Also, last week, Drew Brown for the Red Blacks had a very nice game in that comeback win, that edge of your seat game against Hamilton. 26 of 38, 445 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 pick. But the difference is okay. Drew Brown was hardly threatened in the pocket that whole game. He was sacked once. Okay. As we know, Hamilton is close to the bottom in quarterback sacks, in quarterback pressures in the CFL. Well, this year Toronto led the league in sacks
Just
with
ask
40.
Zach Collaros.
Exactly.
Both
I
games.
think
It was
I
just.
think he had about I think he had about half of the 48, Joe.
It felt like it.
Yeah, I know. It sure did. No, I mean, they racked up quite a few on our guy as well. So yeah, they were pretty nasty this year. The Toronto is a sack machine out there. I mean, they led the league with 48. I think the next closest was like 39. So they won by like half a sack a game over the next closest team. I think it was. I want to say it was. I can't remember who it was. Um, I think it was the Riders actually. Now, sacks aren't everything. Sacks value as a statistic is questionable. I mean, for example, like Winnipeg, who probably one of the better defenses in this league, they were dead last in sacks this year. I mean, they weren't even close to eighth place. So sacks aren't everything, but I don't know. I think that the pass rush alone is enough to disrupt this Red Blacks offense, at least for 3 quarters, right? At least
Yeah,
until we think it's over, like the last time these two teams played, and then the Red Blacks make it close and cover the spread. They didn't quite do it last time, but I mean that's what they threatened to do here. So I don't know. I have to think that the Argos win. I just think that the Argos are too hot. They're too talented. They have just the game to foil the Red Blacks right now. I think. Yeah, I think again. I predicted this last time. I don't think it's going to be very close, but with the way the Red Blacks play, I'm gonna say Argos by 10.
yeah, I'm about in the same boat. Again, they're probably not taking their foot off the pedal, giving it a playoff game. So a pass rush is your first line of defense, and it can cover up a lot of problems you might have behind it. So I'd rather have
Mhm.
one than not. Even if you're indicating the Bombers were last in sacks, they had people behind it to make it stand up. That's a hard thing to do though, week in and week out. So if I it really is going to help Toronto to keep Drew Brown, because Drew Brown's gone off a few times this year. When he's
Yeah.
not being harassed, he lights it up.
Well,
So
this game that he had this week, that was his best since. Wait a minute.
Edmonton, 480, I
Oh,
want to say.
oh, okay. I thought against your guys. He had a nice game against
Also
your
true.
team early this season. I
Uh,
believe, if I remember correctly, he had like 500 yards almost. I think. Yes, you are dead correct, Joe. You are dead correct because the Argos are deadly on the pressures. They're deadly on the pass rush, but they were seventh in passing yards allowed. They were eighth in passing touchdowns allowed, and in quarterback rating
right, that's
against.
the problem.
Now,
It's if that's all you have, you'd better get home.
well, some of it too, Joe, is that because teams have been playing uh, against a lead. Toronto, especially in the second half, has been running up leads. So you're passing a lot more anyway. I mean, geez, I know in the Montreal game, Montreal had, I think, 8 running plays that game because as soon as they turned around, they were down 10-0. So
And the other
you know,
part of it is too, your short passing game helps be part of
right,
your run.
right, right. Stats can lie. Stats can lie, especially defense. Defensive stats can lie a little bit. So, but I don't know. By the eye test, the Argos have a hell of a pass rush, and I don't think that Drew can stand up to it. I don't think Drew Brown can stand up to it. So I'm
Especially
going
being
with.
his first go around in the playoffs. I think his second go around is going to be a lot more smooth.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. This Red Blacks team has been a couple 3 years ago. They were looking like an expansion team again. After Burris left, and then the degeneration thereafter. They were looking like an expansion team, and they're not quite growed up yet, as we might say. But
Nope,
yeah,
but they're definitely
they're
trending in the
close.
right
They're
direction.
knocking on the door. They're out of the playpen. All right. So, all right. BC Lions at Saskatchewan Riders. Now, as I said before, I mean, this one's a tough call. The Riders are the hot team, I would say. They're on a 4-1 run, including the 31-point blowout a few weeks ago of BC, week 19. Again, they split the series this year in week 6 and 19. But of course, Vernon Adams was the quarterback in week 6 and went for 451 yards, by the way. And Nathan Rourke was the quarterback in week 19, and he did not go for 451 yards in that game. Okay, Joe, do you want to begin? I mean, I
Sure.
think we know what the key to the game here is for BC.
Yeah, Vernon Adams has got to go off like a firecracker.
Right. Right.
If he does that, all bets are off, and BC's probably blowing the doors off of Saskatchewan. But if he's not top tier, top tier, throwing it all over the field, lighting it up, I like Saskatchewan's chances, especially being at home. But they're less explosive, but they're more predictable and they're more likely to win a low scoring game.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, again, like we talked about last week, the key is if Vernon has a lead, right? I mean, that was the thing in the week 6 game, right? And this was basically peak Vernon in this game. At that time, I think the Riders were undefeated, maybe, or one loss, and BC was undefeated or one loss. And I mean, Vernon just teed off. But it helped that the Lions got out to a 10-point lead and they never relinquished the lead, right? That's what kind of game Vernon Adams does. Because what happens if you don't is that they forget all about the guy that is their, that was their most consistent contributor this year, William Stanback. And Adams starts gunslinging. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, the worst possible thing that could happen to the Lions is if the Riders return the opening kickoff for a touchdown. That'd be absolutely the worst thing that could happen. You might as well just like cash in your bets right now, if that happens. I promise you. I honestly believe that whoever scores a touchdown first in this game is going to win. That'll be my prediction. But I think I'm going to go with the Riders. I think I'm going to go with the Riders. I
Yeah,
think the Riders
yeah,
have been doing the same thing for about 6 weeks now. So they know who they are. They're playing as a team again. Trevor Harris is certainly a capable quarterback. He's not hurt, so he'll certainly get his stats. And Saskatchewan is pretty strong on the turnover game.
yep.
So,
They make a pick or two early on, and this could be a rout.
uh-huh. Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, again, if the first team that goes up by a touchdown, I can't help but to think that they would win. But I fear that as soon as BC goes down, they forget who Standback is, and that's it. And then we get bad Vernon. Yeah, then we get panicky Vernon. So I don't know, but I'm gonna go with the Riders. Are you gonna
Yeah, I'm
take the
there
home team
too.
here?
I mean, I'm not entirely confident about it because, like we've been saying this whole time, like if BC gets out to a lead and Vernon can play his game and they remember Standback exists, that's a lot harder task.
Mhm. Would you believe the Riders coming back? Can you see them coming
I
from
can
behind?
see the Riders coming back more than I could see the Lions coming back
Right.
because Trevor Harris is consistent enough. They don't have a great running game, but if you're behind, you're using the passing game. They have talented receivers. BC doesn't have that great of a defense. I could see Saskatchewan coming back from a 14-point deficit a heck of a lot more than I could see BC doing it because you know what BC's doing that at that moment. I'll go every play. Good luck.
Mhm, 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 mhm. Yep. Yeah, but see, I don't see that either. I don't see that either. I don't think the Riders are a big comeback team. I
No,
don't.
but they're more likely to.
Yeah, but that's only because I don't believe in the BC Lions to come back at all. So,
Right.
but it's marginal. It's marginal. I really think that both of these games, you could see a snowball effect if certain things happen. You could see these games get a little bit out of hand. Possibly there is a world when that happens, but I not sure we will. But yeah, I'm going chalk. I'm going chalk. I'm taking the home teams here. Okay, okay, great. Who would you rather? Who would you rather see, Joe?
BC. Just having to face Saskatchewan in a playoff game will make it go from white knuckle to white hand for me, right?
Wow,
And I
wow.
think Saskatchewan's the better team too.
What?
I do. I think
Oh,
Saskatchewan's
oh, of
better than
these two
BC.
teams. Okay, Jesus. I
Yeah.
thought you were talking about against the Riders, dude. Like,
No.
what? Are you sick?
Like, the Bombers and Riders match up really well. They've played some good games this
Oh
year.
yeah, yeah, yeah. For once, it's
Again,
been a
I
while.
would rather see BC.
Yeah.
Now, that could come back to haunt me, obviously. BC could come out and Vernon was a stud the week before. Vernon has another great game, and all of a sudden BC's hosting a home Grey Cup.
Mhm.
Much rather see that than Saskatchewan there.
Oh yeah.
But
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
again,
But
that's predicated on a lot of things happening. And we did see what happened last year in Winnipeg when Vernon came in with BC firing on all cylinders.
mhm. Right.
They didn't.
Right. This is the thing about the Lions is that despite the way that they've played this season, many wins, many losses, a few wins, right? Despite this, the thing is this is a mercurial team. This is a fluctuating team, and it is absolutely fitting that they ended up at 9-9, right? I mean, because this is the all or nothing team in the league this year.
Yep.
This is it. This is it. I I
And they
I
could
need to go
roll
back and
all and they could flip all for the next 3 weeks and be the
yeah.
champions.
Yep. 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 But I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it.
Yeah,
It would
because one
certainly
of those
be.
3 games doesn't go your way, and then you're telling a different story.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It would certainly be interesting. It would certainly be the better narrative, I think, for them to win this game. And of course, any narrative would be better than the Argos winning. But
I'll
that's
agree to
just
that.
that's just me.
My biggest fear for this whole thing is Saskatchewan, Toronto, because then who do I cheer for?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That would be a rough one. In that case, I would just go with my old line, which is my favorite team is the team I'm betting on this week. But that's the thing; I couldn't possibly do it. I couldn't possibly bet on Toronto. So
I mean, if that matchup comes out up, I might have to see how much I can get for my ticket.
really, would you really do that?
I don't know, but that'd be like the one circumstance where I'd be like, do I really want to do
Wow.
this?
Would you still go up there and hang out?
Of course,
Yeah,
no doubt.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Wow,
Yeah, because that's
wow,
already
Joe.
booked.
Uh-huh.
But like
I
that
mean, it is
matchup,
BC
there's
too, so I mean, it's gonna be inside anyway. So
like how it's against my religion to root for the Riders. At the same
yeah,
time, I can't possibly see myself rooting for the Argos the way they're presently constructed.
uh huh, uh huh, uh huh.
Change a factor there, and it's an easy call for me. But that factor is probably going to be the reason they get to the Grey Cup if they get there. So
Right. So you're cheering for a Winnipeg Montreal Grey Cup, dude.
I mean that'd be great.
All right, and
Like,
and
and I wouldn't even
Montreal's going to be a
I
6 point favorite.
wouldn't even like my chances in that one. But it's much preferable to the alternative.
Mm, okay, okay, all right. Um, before the show, Joe was talking about how Montreal would be a 6 point favorite in the Grey Cup against Winnipeg. I just want to go on the record as saying, nah, I think it would be -3. I think it would be -3. I think they're going to go with the old Patriots point spread, -3. -3 if that's the Grey Cup. Okay, so great. Here it is. The playoffs begin. The regular season is over in the 2024 CFL. CFL. I can say that. Uh, Joe, has this year flown by? I mean, I'm sure this observation is being made all over the place. I mean, it's almost Halloween already. And then there's that other thing in the US happening after that. And then there's Thanksgiving. So, has the year flown by for you?
It's been fast and slow at the same time. Like day to day, it feels like it's taking forever, but then you look
Right.
up and like how oh my god, we're here already.
Right. Right. I say this all the time. People like to say life is short. They say, yeah, life is short, but some of the individual moments are long. you know, some beats are quite long. So it's not that short in the end. In any case, okay, let's get out of here. The short league is almost over for 2024, but the Rouge, White, and Blue will be back next week. So I'm Oz Davis for my co host Joe Pritchard. We are out of here. We'll talk to you next week for the conference finals.